Looking for a way to relax and unwind? Anxiety and stress. Are you feeling stressed or anxious today? There's a really important skill to learn how to deal with this. At the therapeutic benefits of, guess what? That will blow your mind. Cookies. What? Cookies? No way. Therapeutic cookies. Hi, Dr. Bowers here. Cookies. So we're going to visit you in our office and in the kitchen. I honestly did not plan this today and spend some beautiful time together today. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you so much for being with us. It's just sort of happening and I'm just kind of gobsmacked, as we say in Australia. Well, let me tell you, therapeutic cookies are actually really cool. I'm at the oven and it's just finishing. And you wouldn't have guessed, but these little gems actually have a lot of therapeutic benefits. A batch of homemade cookies. Our therapeutic cookies we made today, right in our own home kitchen at Ability Therapy Specialists and awakenability.com. And I'm so excited. This is very serious. 10 benefits. Dr. Kennedy just mentioned to me over the text, have you made a video about the therapeutic benefits of making cookies? I thought that was so funny. But you know, I started to think about it. I just did a cursory search and there's evidence out there of the therapeutic benefits of cookies. Who would have thought? But I've kind of known it, and you know, it's part of culture and family, and it's just an inner wisdom that you know, and you know, you grow up with this. It was my oldest sister, Betty. While at the editing desk here, just want to warn you what's coming next. You might want to get a tissue. It's a bit dicey. Who was the baker in the family? She was only 7 years older than me. A bit of backstory here. My sister Betty passed away from a fairly rare disease called ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And it's a neurological condition of the brain and the nervous system where the nerves simply shut down all sensations to the body and you lose control of all of your muscles over time. It's a degenerative autoimmune condition and it's a terrible way to die. And my sister was incredibly vital, and she spent her life between Canada and Vietnam, helping other people, raising her family, beautiful 3 children. And she was a dynamic and an incredible woman, and we all miss her very much. So we dedicate this video to her. Betty was the baker in the family. I have lots of memories of getting up through the night and hearing a bit of clanging in the kitchen. And I would sneak down and there she'd be, 3 in the morning, making a batch of cookies. And those yummy cookies or treats or baked goods or little cakes or pies, she'd have them ready in the morning, and it was amazing. She was so gifted with baking, and I think because of that, I never really tried it that much. She got me helping out now and then. And my grandmother was a baker too, and she loved doing that, my gosh. And my mom was a good cook. Mom worked a lot more to keep the house going, so she kept a job with my dad. And you know, as families go, it was my oldest sister really and my grandmother who were the bakers in the clan. So it wasn't until later in life that I really kind of got into it, and I was forced into it because of allergies and food sensitivities that emerged as I got older, and I probably had them all along, but I finally started to deal with it in my 30s and 40s. And so I came to understand how important it was to make food from scratch at home with ingredients that you know that you can trust. And it dawned on me how therapeutic this really is for me and for so many people, because we grow up with cookies, our nannies, grandmothers, parents, moms, sisters, older sisters, whatever, aunties. They make us cookies growing up. And we associate cookies with so many natural parts of life and enjoyment and tasty pleasures. The healing power of homemade cookies in 10 points. Cookies help us to relax and to unwind and to de-stress. If you're feeling stressed today, why not make a batch of cookies? What a great idea. Cookies help us to detach from our stressful experiences. They help us to have a completely different focus. We can be looking this way and dealing with the stress and anxiety of situations on a daily basis, or our work or family life, whatever it is. And we're looking in a different direction. And cookies allow us to detach. And detachment's a key skill. Internally, psychologically, emotionally, to detach is to de-identify ourselves with that stress, with whatever's going on over there, and find a different space. And that skill and ability is really important and really vital. And it's a basic skill that we learn growing up as we shift focuses between activities. Becoming aware of it is really good as we get older, because this awareness of transitions helps us to realize that when we disengage, we're de-identifying with whatever it is we're working on, and we're shifting our focus, making ourselves a bit more flexible, and therefore demonstrating different types of skills and abilities in the emotional, psychological, social, and environmental aspects of our being. So there you go. Making cookies helps us shift our focus to something that's fun, actually kind of tasty. Okay, so then there's the joy of making something yourself. That brings up a lot of personal satisfaction, doesn't it? That you're demonstrating your own skills and capacities to make something at home. This is a rare skill these days, because so many of us now buy everything. Someone else has made that and prepared it and packaged it, and we're buying it up. But we can actually become little creators in the home and make a little batch of cookies ourselves. We really can if we try, and it takes practice. I can remember the first times I tried. I burned a few batches of cookies and a few cakes also, but it took me a while. But I persisted over a few years. Actually, it was a slow process. Now I can whip up a batch of cookies or even a cake, and I can refer to a recipe, but I can also be flexible with that and make things from scratch and adjust recipes. When you understand the key principles of cooking, it is really helpful and useful, in fact. And cookies can actually be extremely nutritious. They're almost like a sweetbread in a way, turned into a little snack that is nutritious, good for the body, good for the mind. Over time, I've learned how to make cookies without all of the sugar content. I might add a little bit of molasses sometimes, or maple syrup, but I keep the sugar content quite low. And then I've learned that when you make cookies in a gluten-free spirit, and even a keto spirit of using more protein, so you can use things like almond flour as at least 50% or 60% of the flour that you use in the cookies. And gluten-free flour is usually rice. And if you're using then rice flour and almond flour, you've got a cookie that is extremely nutritious. Then there's the joy of baking itself, and this develops over time and takes a skill development cycle. Sometimes it's frustrating, and sometimes you lose, and sometimes you win. But that's part of life, isn't it? Then there's following a recipe. For some people, this is actually a therapeutic, joyful experience. Following a recipe can give a person a sense of security, I think, and practicality in the sense that you don't want to waste the ingredients you're using and you want to have the most optimal outcome. So you follow the recipe to reduce the risks involved in making a mistake. This is a really good way to learn how to cook by using the recipes, and then as you get the skills together, and then you start to realize, well, there's actually a formula for making a good batch of cookies. The key is really to get the dough to the consistency that you need to roll out that dough and cut the cookies. And they're not too wet or they're not too dry. So you kind of get it in that spectrum of not too wet, not too dry cookie texture, and you've got a win. You probably have a win. So then, you could adjust the levels of sweetness or the levels of spices. And once I learned that, I thought, oh, I can actually make a kind of different batch of cookies every couple of months or whatever, and they'll always be unique. They'll never be the same. And that's kind of exciting for me. It keeps you on your edge. It gives you something to look forward to when you realize you can share your cookies with your family, with your friends. And they're always interesting because the tastes and textures and flavors are always a little bit different. This next one's really interesting. Making cookies is a form of aromatherapy. I never even conceived of this before, but of course it's true. You know why? Because you're putting in yummy flowers that potentially have unique smells as they're cooking. So if you use regular flour, like a wheat-based flour, you're going to have that smell that's kind of similar to a sweetbread in the house. And isn't that beautiful? If you're using other kinds of flours, like almond flour, you're going to have kind of a nutty aromatherapy happening in your house. If you use gluten-free flour, a lot of those types of flours are based on rice. So you might have that beautiful rice smell, and you're going to have very interesting smell combinations. Then just think about this. You're going to be adding maybe cinnamon. Cinnamon has a beautiful smell when it's baked. If you use nutmeg or cloves, they're also going to have very unique and kind of exotic layers of smells that are absolutely an aromatherapy when they're baked in the kitchen. So that's just a few of the ingredients you could add to cookies, and there's so many more actually. And the aromatherapy potential there is so interesting. I can remember one batch of cookies a couple of Christmases ago where I dropped in some peppermint oil into the batch, and those cookies took on a beautiful Christmassy flavor. But the smell in the house of that peppermint, it was so beautiful. It was so nice. I had to have some peppermint tea as well when I was munching on those cookies. So aromatherapy, what an interesting thing, and I would never have thought of that with cookies. And you've got a delicious cookie all of a sudden. You can add an egg or two to mix in, and if you're milk reactive, you don't have to use a milk. This particular batch I made with the liquid I used was a couple of eggs, a little bit of maple syrup, because I just finished off the bottle, so I had a little bit left. Threw that in, and some organic molasses, and I used vanilla, toss of vanilla into it, and that was the liquid and that's all I needed, because making cookies you don't need a lot of liquid, right? So the recipe that I developed, I just sort of chuck in the ingredients each time I make it now, and I adjust it or whatever to the amount of the consistency that you need to roll out the cookie dough. And this time, for the first time ever in my life, instead of using a glass or some kind of cookie cutter, I just decided I'm just going to cut it with a knife. So I just cut it into triangular shapes, and that's what this batch is now. I will let you see how it turned out. Let me see. I'm so excited. I have to open the oven. have to see this while they're in the oven. Look at that. A therapeutic batch of cookies. I've been developing videos and whatnot in our programs, and really, I needed a break. I needed a cookie break. I'm a cookie monster. Ah! Oh my golly. Oh my golly gosh. Cookies! Woo! We're awakening our ability to eat cookies. It's so exciting. Oh my gosh. I have to put them over on the stove on a cooling rack. I'll be with you in a second. Here we go. And look, we are getting the cookies out, and I'm looking at them. They're done. Yep. Slightly brown on the bottom. Pretty good. And I wasn't too concerned about how I put them in this pan, and some of them are breaking up because they're stuck together. Uh-oh. Not exactly professionally looking cookies here, but look, when you're making for your family, does it really matter? And they are yummy. I like that. That's a nice base color on that one. That one's a bit more towards the middle of the pan, so I guess it's hotter in that area of the little oven. We bought this little oven because my big oven died, and so we're lucky enough to have Kmart in Australia. So I got myself a small oven, because I realized in rural Australia, it's extremely expensive to get a repair person over to fix our big oven. And I think it was the second time this oven broke down. It broke down while it was in warranty. And then again, so I thought I've had enough of this oven. So I only use the stove now as a cooktop. It's a convection sort of stove, which I like, so it's glass. And it's nice to use. I enjoy using it as, just cooking on the top of the stove. And I used to enjoy making large turkeys and roasts and everything. But over the years, I've become a bit more towards a vegetarian. Not quite there yet, but I eat a lot more of a Mediterranean diet now. I've got my batch of cookies. I'm so happy. They look so delicious. Oh my golly. The next idea that came up was how cookies bring up our taste sensations when we actually eat them. And this generates endorphins in the brain. And endorphins are what are called the feel-good hormones. And this is produced through the combination of our sensory systems. We see the beautiful little cookie. Of course, this was one of the other points, that the sight aspect of our visual system actually is part of our neurological enjoyment cycle. So we see the process of the cooking, but then we see the actual product that we've created. And the cookie itself, when it's cut in a particular shape, or when we're using special cookie cutters, or we're just using a knife and chopping them up into sort of triangular shapes, whatever it is, we might decorate that cookie. The visual stimulus there of the colors, of the decorations, of the way the cookie is presented, how it looks on the plate. All of these things have a visual stimulus. The taste then also combines with that visual sense. We have the auditory things going on throughout the cooking process. The sounds that are familiar that we grew up with when our parents or grandparents were cooking in the kitchen. Those sounds are embedded in our unconscious. And when we reproduce those sounds in a way through our cooking, we are engaging in a therapeutic and cultural experience. I think that's pretty amazing. When you think about that, it's powerful and it brings up a lot of memories, and it's just deeply therapeutic. It brings us back to our heart, to our center. We've got the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic aspect of cooking is in the process itself, which is part of the reason why I so recommend home cooking, because it gives you the kinesthetic, physical, and real experience of making something yourself in the home. And this is extremely positive for self-esteem, for everyday living skills. The visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and gustatory. Oh my, so the endorphins, yeah, absolutely. So I think that was 10 reasons why cookies are therapeutic. Isn't that incredible? Who would have thought? Oh my. I put some raisins in these ones too. Beautiful, organic Australian raisins. Ooh, wow. Oh, that's a nice combination of spices this time. And it was a little heavy on the cinnamon, but because it's a bit of a bigger batch, oh, it works really well. Some cinnamon, cloves, and some fresh nutmeg that I grated it. And it's a beautiful combination. Cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. Oh, if you like those spices. Oh my God. Where's my coffee? And a bit of milk. Yum. That is so exciting. And it's a lift me up. This is therapy, baby. At its best. This is like, I don't have to pay for a therapist, but I could enjoy this with my therapist. And my therapist could be human, like me. And, oh my, this could be too therapeutic. I could eat half of this batch all in one go. But you know what? Having a few of these cookies, because they're almond-based and a rice-based gluten-free flour, these are really healthy cookies. And isn't that crazy, having a really healthy cookie? It is such an awesome idea. Who thought of this? It was a woman, because women have wisdom. Women understand the body. They know what it's like to struggle with gaining weight and keeping weight off and managing their weight. Women were the ones that really spearheaded the whole movement towards gluten-free and healthy eating. Absolutely. I think if you do a historical study on the development of some of these movements, food sensitivities, gluten-free, allergies, a lot of these movements go right back to mothers and women who were struggling with these issues and brought it to the public's attention. And this is the origin of these things. And I think that's really powerful. And that's therapeutic too, because it's empowering and it's acknowledging. And it's a type of feminine wisdom. Guys, you got to wake up. Join the movement. You really have to awaken your ability too. To all those guys out there, buck up, buddy. You really got to get with the program. Do this at your own risk. Cooking at home is a tricky business. I've stuffed it up many times, and all I can say is what's good for me personally. And in my role as a counselor, psychotherapist, and behavior specialist, I really suggest to people, give it a try. Concentrate on building some basic skills. If you're nervous at all, or if you're questioning what you should use or what ingredients are good for you, you can go online and search recipes, but one of the most sort of comforting ways to deal with this is to find somebody in the family or a friend that you've got who enjoys baking and get them involved. Learn with them. It's much more fun when you learn with somebody, and it's a little bit safer too. And if you're younger or if you have a disability, you got to rely on your family or your disability worker or your support worker or carer, and they'll help you through the process. And choosing the ingredients is really important. You have to be aware of your allergies, sensitivities, and all of that. Your tastes too, what you like, what you dislike. All of that needs to be taken into consideration, and this is a lot of the reasons why so many of us just buy from a store these days, because it is a lot to think about, a lot to sort through, and a lot of decisions to make towards making just one little cookie. And when you think about it that way, yeah, might just go to the local baker and support their business. And if they're a beautiful baker, why not support their business too? But you can, at times, take this into your own kitchen and see what you come up with and see how much it can be enjoyable and a really incredible experience for you and the people that you live with on a day-to-day basis. Hey there, how you going? This video is very interesting because we've clipped different settings in our kitchen, in our office, and out here in the beautiful garden on a gorgeous day in Australia. Let me go through just a few of these to introduce this video, this therapy of cookie business. Cakes also, that's a different experience, making cakes for sure. Here are the 10 therapeutic benefits for the record for dear old homemade cookies. But at the moment we're looking at, let me introduce you to a concept